Welcome back to another live show, Veteran Nation fans. And before we get going, I just want to address what they just were talking about on Council of Colonels. Because if they put Gunny and Keith on the show together, Juan, I think our co-host here, the great TC Pearson, should be the moderator. I'll throw you right in the
I
middle of
don't.
that.
I they'd both beat me up. They. I would not toe the appropriate lines for that. So
It could
yeah,
be like old school McCaughlin Group if you ever watched that show back in the day.
I'd say throwback for all of our younger viewers, but all of our younger viewers won't get anything out of that. So try bringing up a fax machine to a younger person these days and see what happens.
Oh, you know what? It's funny you say that because today I was asked, I need to get some paperwork because we are now a nonprofit. And I had to contact the
I
IRS. And
just, as a point of clarification, we have been nonprofit since we met. So
yes, yes. But now we are officially, in the eyes of the government, nonprofit. In fact,
I'm nonprofit because of the eyes of the government.
we're almost anti-profit. We owe we blow way more money than what we bring in. But the
Hashtag
IRS
taxation theft.
the IRS told me, well, we can mail this to you or we can fax it to you. And I wanted to be like, well, send me a telegram I'll send me a telegram and I'll reply with my fax number. Like, seriously, we can't email stuff from the IRS. Like, fax is the only way we can do it.
Uh, yeah, we the IRS is still phoning it in most of the time anyway. So
Well, from what I hear, they're not going to get those agents that they were hoping for because of the debt ceiling deal.
what
But
the 87,000 that they got
the
last
door
year
knockers.
wasn't enough.
Well,
That
apparently,
wasn't they need they,
with the debt ceiling deal, that is not going to be funded, is what I heard. I haven't looked into it. Uh, Normally, I'm a nerd and I read all the articles about that, but it was Memorial Day this weekend, so I did not pay a lot of attention to stuff like that. I was out and about
oh
enjoying.
now they're only getting 85,000. So
Yeah, they've decreased the increase, so it's a decrease. I always love when they do that. Oh no, no, we've agreed to a decrease. You're still increasing. Yeah, but it's not as much.
yeah, it's about par for the course. Hey, I was gonna bring up, since this is Vet Nation and we've got some esteemed guests coming on to talk about their service member. I wanna point everybody to a topic that's been near and dear to my heart for over a year now. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're paying attention. Ukraine has upped its attacks on Russia. We can sit here and we could debate all day long who the aggressor is. We can debate what would we do if somebody invaded our sovereign soil, and all we could debate that all day long. But folks, we are so close right now to another protracted war that we're involved in that you gotta wake up. We're funding Ukraine's attack on Russia. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The United States is fighting a proxy war with Russia through Ukraine. We're sending money, arms, munitions. We've got troops on the ground. If you think for a minute like this continued escalation isn't going to ramp up to something more severe real fast, if we don't get pull back from the brink, you're crazy. And I want to ask my fellow veterans, I want to ask non-veterans, not non-military people who are watching, how many more years, how many more service members need to go over to another country and die? How many more people have to be plagued and injured with post-traumatic stress disorder, how many more soldiers have to come home without any visible injuries, but have an internal, emotional, and mental health issues that are very much injuries, and have to take their own lives because of what they've been subjected to? Because that's where this is headed, and that's where it's going to end if you don't wake up and start demanding that your congressmen and your senators do something to end this. And don't think for a minute it's just the left or it's just the right, it's just Republicans or it's just Democrats. They're all in on this, except for a very small handful. They're all in on it. They want this. Their campaign funding depends on this. The military industrial complex wants this war, and every single person in power, save for a small handful, is pushing this. And we have got to get out of this before it's too late. Because this one is not going to end with just a withdrawal and a few soldiers, or Marines or airmen or seamen wounded. If this continues to escalate, we're all in trouble. That's it.
No, absolutely. In fact, I saw that they're doing drone attacks now, and yeah, that's it's escalating. And you know, I really hope the powers that be decide to de-escalate, and you know, for all parties involved. But I did
Skipper, I'm upset you didn't notice
your
my
glasses,
new glasses. Yeah,
your
you didn't
portholes,
notice.
as we used to say in the Marine Corps.
You didn't notice. I'm rocking the intelligent look because one of us has to. And
We we need to send the VA over to your house. Get you. Need to have them send you some BCGs.
no, I don't need those things. That these are, but this is the closest you're ever going to hear me being a progressive. I've progressive lenses, so um,
They don't. That's
my
just because they
car's
don't make
my car caught
libertarian
on
lenses.
fire when I got in with progressive lenses on because it didn't know how to handle a progressive inside of it. I, so,
That's okay. We won't make fun of you.
but
Juan may, but he's off screen. Yeah, he's nodding.
well, I got the I took it back and got the anti glare on because there's really only enough room for glare on one of our cameras, and that has to be yours with your head looking the way it does. So
That's
anyway,
why I toned down the.
you
All my
tone
lights
down the
here are
light.
diffused. Like none are directly on me for that very reason.
Well, you have some guests. You brought us some guests tonight.
Yes, we have two guests, and they have had some legislative success, and in an area that you and I care deeply about, and that's military and veteran suicide. They petitioned for the Brandon Act to get passed, and it was passed roughly about 2 years ago. Uh, Unfortunately, they did lose their son, Brandon, and that's so we'll just bring them onto the show, Teri and Patrick Caserta, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Um, Welcome to the show, and if you could tell us a little bit about your son.
Thank you for having us on. We appreciate it a lot. Brandon was an amazing young man. He was kind and generous, very funny, loved anybody and everybody, helped everybody who needed help or who he felt needed help. He was always there for everybody. When he when he when he did die, we noticed from his phone, once we got his phone, he was helping others, sailors, not die by suicide.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, he did die. So even from a very small age, he was buying lunches for kids who didn't, have a lunch. He did that all the way through high school. He was even even the day he died, he was helping others not die by suicide. He was that kind of a person, very generous, very loving. Did I miss something?
No, he just had a smile that made you want to smile. And he didn't care who you were or what you were. It didn't matter to him. He treated everybody the same, whether you liked him or not. He'd still help you. He just very outgoing kid. Always found a positive and a negative. Um, at least in the regular world.
And he was
How
in the
long?
Navy,
How
correct?
long had he been in the Navy?
He was in 3 years.
Oh,
And was he
avionics.
separated from service at the time?
No, no, he's on active duty. Is at his command.
Yeah, he was a aviation electrician.
Okay, that's right. I was getting a little bit confused there. I knew I'd read that. Um, and how did he seem leading up to it? Did you have any indication at all?
We had no
No.
indication, but he'd been having problems in that command for years. When I say it is from the day he arrived, they treated him horribly. Of course, that was their SOP there. It didn't matter who you were really. Um, they just they were toxic, abusive command. Period. And
Mm-hmm.
what the only indication was the plan was to get him out of there. He went air crewman. It's called. He was leaving, supposed to be leaving, and he was accepted to this hard program to get into that the Navy had to offer, and he was supposed to be leaving, and they were trying to sabotage him leaving. And that was the solution: was to get out of the command, safeguard him, and then we can go after all these idiots in that command. Um, but unfortunately, it was a lot worse than he ever told us. But we had no indicators. In retrospect, there's some signs, but again, those signs are um,
Hard to see.
we would have never noticed them. We would have never
Can,
noticed them.
Right.
can you give us some background onto or into exactly what the command was doing and how they were treating him? Like, because I mean, and I don't want you guys to rehash. I know this is hard. Wounds never heal, but prior to
Well,
him dying, what was it that they were doing to him so that we can shed light on that, and then what happened after his death that really came to light?
well, he they treated him horribly. Example is this, and I kid you not what I'm about to tell you. And I'm retired Navy, 22 years. Um, I They had him selling candy when he checked in, and he did that on and off again for 3 years. I'm not kidding you.
They had him doing what?
Selling candy. And this is the biggest, I said this earlier too, waste, fraud, and abuse for taxpayers' money in the history. You think the hammers are a joke and the toilet seats are a joke. Think about this one. I was in recruiting. I was at the headquarters. I was stationed there for a couple of years. I know exactly what it costs to put somebody in. I know what it costs to maintain a sailor. In the first years of junior ranks, it cost well over 100 grand a year, taxpayers. There was 10 people selling candy in this command. Okay. It was costing taxpayers um, $1 million a year in that command alone to sell candy. Now take it a step further. In Norfolk, Virginia, there's 13 helicopter squadrons. So now we're up to 13 million. Times that times every aviation command in the entire Navy. And that's how much money is being wasted.
Mm-hmm.
He was selling candy. He was good at it. I commend him. Brandon always was good at everything he did. He just was that way. He would go around to find out what they wanted, and when they brought them to the store, you go buy it for them and sell it right there. They had whatever they want. You want a Snickers or whatever, he'll have Snickers there for you. He was very good at it, but it was demeaning and he hated it. And yes, he went to school. He went to A school, it's called, and this is Navy terminology, and he went to advanced school. He went to both those, and he was a rated airman. So he was an electrician, never worked a second in his rating. He sold candy and worked on a flight line that he was not even supposed to be doing either of those two things.
So I
And
want to make sure I understand this. He was working in basically this ship store.
yeah, there was no ship store, but yeah, their snack bar, if you want to call it that, their homemade snack bar with tables. Yes. And that's what he did. But that aside, okay, I'm just telling you what they had him doing. They hazed him, harassed him, verbally abused this kid every day, bullied. Um, it, this kid would examples is he would do his work, he'd go help others finish their work, and he'd go back and ask for more work, and the guy he worked for would tell him, why don't you go make yourself useful somewhere else? It just was an ass. And they let's see, E7 stole his wallet, used his credit card, they stole money from him, they stole money from his room, uniforms, video games,
boots.
They planted 5 fake $5 bills in his wallet. Can't tell me somebody that was going to die planted 5 fake $5 bills in their wallet. What joke is there if you don't address it in a letter or something? You'd have to explain that one to get any satisfaction out of it. So they took the money out of his wallet and planted 5 fake $5 bills. I have them. The commanding officer, it was a toxic abusive command. When I say that, it's, if you look it up by the terms, it really was. I mean, they did not like him because he was happy-go-lucky and he was leaving. They were mad that he was leaving because he was the best worker in the command, hardest best worker in the command, and they didn't want him to leave, so they were sabotaging it. And this LPO he worked for, this guy was on deployment, he was fired, came back, they gave him his job back in the command and put him in charge, and he was abusing all these E4 and below, and everybody watched him do it, did nothing about it. And when I say abuse, I'm talking, you just put your mind to it and you got it. We don't have to go into exact detail. This guy he didn't care about anything but himself, and he would demean you any way he could. And people watched and they just didn't do anything. And the other thing I want to point out is whenever there's a death in a command, in particular suicide, I rest assured that that command has got huge problems. Brandon's command, for an example, they had the highest sexual harassment, assault, bullying, hazing, crime rate, everything in Norfolk, Virginia. A death is just a red flag, is all it is. That it's going to happen. It will happen eventually. But that command was by far the worst command. And let's see, did I address everything?
Well, I was going to say
ahead.
too
Well,
that
you addressed enough, that's for sure.
They didn't like him a lot because he came from Bud's training. And I think they thought that Brandon thought he was better than everybody else, and that's far from the truth.
Touch on Bud's training for those who aren't aware. So what is Bud's, and how did he end up not staying with Bud's then after that? Did he complete Bud's, or did he bow out? How did that happen?
Well, none of those, unfortunately, kinda. Bud's is SEALs, Navy SEALs training, and
basic underwater demolition. Yeah.
Correct, and it's the first phase. He was in it. He was in week 3. Before that, he was having problems with his leg. They said it was severe shin splints. He went to medical 3 different times. The corpsman refused to do an x-ray on him. So it was a waste of money. It was severe shin splints. He said it wasn't. They didn't believe him. I told him to go to emergency room, but he wouldn't listen to me. I had to live with the rest of my life that I should have hopped in the car and taken him myself. Meaning we're in Phoenix, we're not in San Diego, but it wasn't all that far. And he refused to go. Next thing that happens is he passed out and collapsed on the beach, and they threw him in the back of a pickup truck, took him to the famous bell. He would not ring the bell because you don't do that unless you want out. And so they rang it for him. Not only did they ring it for him, they left him at the bell and left. They didn't take him to the hospital, nothing. I mean, this kid passed out on the beach, collapsed and passed out. He called us. I had him go to medical. The doctor told him word for word. He said, "Oh, you got severe shin splints, but let me do an x-ray." And he goes, "I'll call you if there's anything wrong, but don't expect a call from me." Then 15 minutes, the doctor was calling him, say, "Get back here. Your leg's broken in 3 different places." So he was running 20 miles a day and doing SEAL training for several weeks with a broken leg, probably just one break, turned.
I hope we lost him. Folks, while we're waiting for the there, you guys froze up a little bit. So you're saying that he was running for 20 miles a day for several weeks, and the command basically ignored it. And this is, for those of you who haven't, you need to go back and watch our conversation with Heather Hedge, Caleb's mom. There's this consistency, and for the life of me, I don't know what in the high hell happened to the military from the time I was. Well, I have some ideas, but I won't posit them here, but not this time. But command used to give a damn about their service members. They used to give a damn. Oh, you're injured, you're wounded. I mean, you'd catch some flack from people, sick call ranger. That's what we called them in the Army. But maybe the Navy calls them sick call SEALs. I don't know, but what Skipper? Juan. Sir, I forgot your name. I shouldn't admit that, but. Because every time you talk, I keep hearing Christopher Walken, so I keep thinking that's what I should call you, is Mr. Walken. But
I'm sorry. I think I did say your names at the beginning. Teri and Patrick, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
All right. So in my life, that's not how this went. If you were wounded, if you were injured, what can we do to get you better? Obviously they wanted you at fighting strength, they wanted you in fighting shape, they wanted you to to be able to go out there and do the job you were assigned to do, but they wanted you healthy and in good repair for that.
Yes.
And every single person I talk to these days, that's not like that anymore. They literally don't give a damn. They just don't care.
That's a fact, and it's a shame. In Brandon's case, 2 hours after Brandon collapsed, you won't recognize any of this to my knowledge, but the SEALs, they drowned a kid in the pool, the instructors. Those are the instructors that rang the bell for Brandon. There goes your corruption. It was ruled a homicide. They killed him. Killed a kid. 2 hours later, same people. So you tell me.
Okay,
again,
so let's pull that thread a little bit. Let's pull that, Patrick, if I may. The guys who were overseeing him, who drove him in the back of a truck with broken leg after he passed out, I would imagine probably from the pain, because that's not. I had an extremely bad hairline fracture when I was with the 82nd Airborne, to the point where it was causing me to collapse at times. So I can't imagine if he had 3 fractures, whether they were, snaps or whatnot. The pain that he had to have been in with those fractures is debilitating. That's enough to cause you to pass out, to go unconscious. They then, that exact same day, just a short time later, drowned a recruit.
Factual.
Exactly.
And not only did they drown
Did
one,
they get held accountable?
no, it was ruled a homicide, but the SEALs, they look out for the SEALs. They didn't do anything to our knowledge. I mean, in all fairness, it wasn't advertised if they did anything or not. I think they might have been relieved when I say that, meaning they didn't teach the rest of that SEAL training, but I don't think they ever transferred or
Oh
anything.
gosh.
Um, they got away with it. I mean, it was one of those. Well, that was the first how to get away with murder scenario that we witnessed, but that was it. They in that same unit, these instructors, there was a guy in SEAL training. They failed him out. He jumped off the balcony of a hotel and it took his life. Another one deliberately crashed into a freeway median and took his life. So they had death all over the place during that time. And it was these same people. Ironically, there's a current story out there you will read if you haven't, that a person that made it through week 5 died, and there was performance enhancing drugs involved, at least with the SEAL training. I can't vouch for the individual. But they had a problem that was exposed, and this same problem was going on when Brandon was there. He told us all about it. We knew about this in 2015, 16, that they were doing performance. He was mad because he wouldn't do any of that stuff, and they were cheating, in other words. And the instructors were the ones selling it. And if you don't believe it, look at it this way. Picture somebody being in SEAL training. They're tied up pretty much 24/7. I suppose when they get a break, you expect us to believe they hop in their car and go downtown San Diego to a street corner and buy some performance enhancing drugs. Okay, that's not happening. We know this. Okay, so
They're
you
not
know
even
where they're.
allowed off base.
Thank you. Well, I'm just telling you that. So somebody was giving it to them, and that was going on. It was exposed. And we asked Brandon about it. This is after Brandon had left there, and he told us all about it, but he didn't like it and he thought it was wrong and he stayed away from it. And he claims, again, he told us this personally. When he collapsed, he was holding boat overhead. They do that. And by position of height is an advantage, as in, if you're tall, you want to be in a certain spot. If you're shorter, you want to be in a certain spot. He was trying to switch with somebody, they wouldn't switch with him. And ironically, that person was in the people that do the drugs group. Brandon was not. See, the ones not in are dangerous to the ones in. I mean, they could rat him out at any time, right? Think about it.
Oh yeah.
So there was a thing because they were stealing his uniforms in there. Brandon was really good about being inspection ready. So they were stealing his uniforms, his boots, things of that nature. And it was that group of people that were, I guess one could call it cheating. But anyway, that was going on then. And then currently it's been exposed that these people are not getting proper medical treatment, and all what we told you has been proven by fact. Unfortunately, took to 2023. We exposed it in 2018 after Brandon died, but no one wanted to listen to us. But now that it's beyond fact, it's like they don't even know what to do, how similar the story is. The difference between the current kid that died and Brandon, it goes like this. This kid collapsed on the beach, passed out. They set him back to the beginning. That's what they do. In Brandon's case, they took him to the hospital too. Brandon, they didn't take to the hospital. They didn't set him back. Those instructors were corrupt. And so that didn't happen. Brandon had the misfortune of this. And if you're thinking this, I will point this out. We went to San Diego immediately. We were there. I told Brandon, word for word, I can get you back in SEALs immediately. You have a broken leg. It's pretty simple. He looked at me and he said, Dad, there is no doubt in my mind you could get me back in. He said, you would get me back in today. They'll take me. The problem is they'll never let me get through. And I had to back away. I mean, who would know? But somebody going through it, he knows how they are, not just those instructors, how it's done there. There's no way. And he is right. They wouldn't have let him through. He would have never made it anyway. So what difference? It would have been a waste of time in his point. He would have never made it. But in his case, they should have set him back, and he would go with the next class. And they did that many times, the others, for various reasons. But again, if they don't take you to medical, you don't get diagnosed, you're out of there. So they, as far as they're concerned, you took yourself out of there. But anyway, you brought up the buds. Can you imagine something? Brandon was in swimming and karate since he was 4. He played sports year round, played tackle football year round later on, flag before that. Um, his whole life, he'd come home on leave and do this stuff. I kid you not the sports, but the karate and swimming. And he was epitome of shape. He could outswim anybody, and in particular for stamina, he'd keep going. Energizer Bunny, they called him. And can you imagine going to a new command and they're calling you a buds dud? Here you are, the epitome of shape. People would die to be in shape like that. And they're calling you a buds dud. I was in recruiting for 15 years, Navy recruiting. I never heard that term ever. That's how bad that command was. They'd reinvent the wheel to get to you.
Did he bring up any of these issues at any of these commands? Did he formally tell anybody, try to get any investigations or anything going?
What he did, exactly 1 week before he died, he typed a letter out for the commanding officer. And at Helicopter Sea Combat Squadron 28 in Norfolk, Virginia, the standard procedure would be to put a note in the anonymous box and then slip the same letter underneath the commanding officer's door. And that's exactly what Brandon did. It told him pretty much everything that was wrong with the command. And he even states in there, "This is my last ditch effort." And that letter went absolutely nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
The commanding officer did absolutely nothing.
Because
If anything, it got worse.
I can
We
sympathize
didn't know.
because I've been in toxic commands. When I experienced suicidal ideations on my behalf, it was in a command where I was requesting, do an investigation. Here's proof of wrongdoing, and what you come across is, if you don't investigate, there's no findings of fact. If there's no findings of fact, it becomes see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
Right. Well, in this case, he gave him the letter. They knew where it came from. They had to, because they got worse that week. However, the command climate surveys, many people come forward on what they did. Brandon told us on the command climate that they reamed the command. We can't get copies. They redact them and will not. We appealed and lost, and we've been fighting ever since. We've had Congress try to get us to unredacted copies, and they're unsuccessful. That's because.
Well, I just
Go
wanted
ahead.
to let you guys know that while you were talking, I tagged a friend of mine who is an investigative journalist who has covered big stories from Waco to Oklahoma City to other stories, and is an expert on Operation PatCon from the FBI in the 80s and into the 90s. He digs into things like this, and he has already been alerted to Heather's situation with her loss, and I have tagged him in this post on Twitter and tweeted this out. So he works magic. I can't guarantee you he's going to have time to dig into this, but maybe he can help us get some traction on this. So I wanted to throw that out there, especially with all the redaction and stuff, because he and the people he works with are able to, I don't know, they work marvelously well, and I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they get their information, but they are dangerous to the status quo, and they are dangerous to the regime at all its levels. And this may have to be a two-parter because you guys have a lot of information, and it's one of those things that I'm still floored by how he was treated in San Diego, and so he washes out, not by choice, tells you, no, don't put me back in because they're going to get rid of me if you do. You won't survive. I mean, that's a very clear indictment against the system there. So did he have to go back to school at this point?
Well,
and then to
yes,
get his new
yes.
assignment?
Well, yes and no. That was a God. Wait do you hear this? All right. So remember, I was a Navy counselor. Okay, just so you know that part. And the there was like 25 of them here in Phoenix that went SEALs. They were all friends. They were working out together. They became friends. Tight knit group. None of them made it through, unfortunately, but some went before Brandon, a lot of them. And what would happen is when they washed out for whatever reason, they would call me and ask me what they should do, as in what job should they pick. Here's how that system worked. If you're lucky, they'd give you 5 choices. Of those 5, there'd be 3 of them they're called undesignated. They're jobs no one wants to do, trust me. And they're not going to do you any good in the regular world. And then 2 of them might be something decent. And what they would do is these people have 30 minutes to pick one of those 5. If they don't pick one of those 5, they'll pick one for them. And you can hear them. I'm on the phone with these people. I can hear them in the background saying, you have 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It was unbelievable. And I witnessed this with Brandon on top of that, but I knew about it beforehand. And I want you to point out to you, these kids have top scores here. These are not low scores. They qualify for everything, but probably the nuclear program. And I could tell you some of them probably qualify for the nuclear program. But they
You're
qualify
talking
for
about
any
MPT. You're talking about MPTU,
NTP. What is that? It's not a
nuclear
term.
power training.
Yeah, yes. That they would qualify. Some of them would, not all of them. I'm saying their scores are very high to get into SEALs. And so, anyway, out of the 5 he was offered, 3 of them were out of the equation. There was one that was decent. That was electrician. I felt that was the best one. We went with it. So immediately they transferred him. Now I want to point out something. They transferred that kid with a broken leg on crutches to Pensacola, Florida. Just keep that in the back of your mind. And he went there. You know, he made it through school. He did good. But that's how they don't let you pick what you want to do. Is my point. We addressed that with Congress. Senator Kane got that changed for a while, and then conveniently the Navy switched back to their bad tactics. But recently, in person, when we met with the Secretary of Navy, we brought it up to him, and he said that they changed it back the other way, and that he assures us that most of those kids are getting jobs that they'd like to do that don't make it through SEALs. So that was one of the things that Brandon pointed out in his
You know how
letter.
you know he was being dishonest?
Uh-oh.
His lips were moving.
Well,
That's what I used to tell people about recruiters.
yeah, well, this is one of the honest ones. You won't find anybody. I'm not going to tell you I was liked by everybody, but they didn't hate me, and I didn't lie. I always told the truth. But the truth, I was lucky that the truth would actually
Your recruiter's
work.
your best friend until you actually get to your duty assignment, and then you're like, "My recruiter's a no." So
Nah,
he picks aviation electronics because the other options. Just give us an example, if you would, of some of these throwaway jobs that aren't going to do you any good or aren't going to have any like real world application.
this programs I'm going to tell you about haunted us in recruiting. I just let you know I addressed it at the highest levels many times. And they didn't only laughed at me. I actually had to shut up because I was actually looking so stupid that it got to the point where I had to back away. But seamen, airmen, and firemen, what that is a general program. What it is you go in these programs and you're doing worse than shit work. Trust me. I can't even describe. You're painting and chipping the ship in the seaman. The fireman one, you're cleaning, painting, chipping. The airman one, apparently you're selling candy. Brandon was not that program. I'm just telling you, you're selling candy and you're on a flight line apparently. And what happens is you decide what job you like to do, and if the command approves it and you qualify, you can become that job after you've been in the command for 2 years, after you pass the test for that rating. It's for third class, which is E4. You could go in one of those jobs. And so it's a non-guaranteed program is what it is. And these departments are very important. I'm not going to deny that, but someone that, in particular, their dad's retired Navy counselor, they're not going in the Navy that way. Trust me. I would never let anybody join that way. Um, you need to have a school. School is where it's at. Don't get me wrong. There's been many successful people that have gone the other route, but if you talk to them, I put it this way: I have high respect for them because I don't know how they survived. I I do not know. When I say that, I watched how they treated those people. Trust me, you would not believe it. The first thing we were taught when I arrived to the ship that those people were less than us. They were like below whale shit, literally. I mean, I kid you not. And you, sad as you buy into it, I found myself acting like I was better than them for a while. I changed my tone when I saw what they did and respected them, but it took a while. But it was because it was politically incorrect in front of people to not treat them bad. It was,
Interesting
you know, so
that you say that, because when I got commissioned, I was at a naval ROTC program, was with a lot of Navy personnel, and then when I actually got out into the fleet and spent some time on ship and whatnot, I noticed how the Navy treats ensigns, and I was just like, wow, this is interesting, because being a Marine, yeah, we make fun of our butter bar lieutenants, but the Navy's pretty harsh in the way their ensigns are treated. I, I'm not going to say it's completely unjustified, but I was just like, wow, uh, these are officers who get zero respect.
I mean, I wouldn't make any smart aleck comments about the commissioned officers that I dealt with, or in general, ever. I would never do that.
Well, even in the Army, you're treated with a level of respect that I did not see, like from the LPOs to the ensigns. Like it was just like, yeah, you need to shut up and just walk over to this corner and watch what's happening. And I was like, whoa, interesting.
Uh,
well,
so
yeah.
he picks this career track, knowing that it has a future. He gets to Norfolk. Was he stationed on a carrier? Was he assigned to a carrier group? I mean, I would assume.
No, he was assigned to an air squadron.
Okay,
They're seagoing, but
that's what
he
happens
was
when
not.
I assume.
Okay. And but the command itself, he didn't mind that part. He didn't want to do it. Don't get me wrong. He did not want to do what he was doing, but that's where the problem lies. These SEALs that don't make it through, let's face it, and Brandon knew this, just so you know, he was well drilled in it. A small percentage make it through. It's against all odds. Probably the hardest program in the world, literally, without exaggerating to you, when it comes to physical fitness and tolerance of things. They should start over again. When I say that is, it should be just like joining again, or one could say not joining again. Maybe they should be let go instead of making them, I call it, at the mercy of the Navy. That's what Brandon was and the others. They're at the mercy of the Navy. That
Well,
part
they
is
have this attitude that they have you because you're on contract, so you owe them because you signed on the dotted line. It doesn't matter whether or not they're fulfilling any of their obligations.
right. But
Exactly.
if I had a broken leg and they didn't send me back and I didn't fail out the traditional way, I'd have a problem with that. I'm sorry. And Brandon had a case. You can look at his picture. If he wouldn't have gotten hurt, I'm here to tell you, if he would have started over, he would have made it through. That kid, he was never going to ring the bell, and um, he seen movies about it. He met actual SEALs. We took him to San Diego. We spent time with SEALs. We watched them. I mean, he was ready. Physically, he was ready. That's the hardest part. I mean, he could do 100 push-ups and laugh at you. I mean, he could run. He made all his times. He exceeded them. He continually improved, and they all do. But you're required to beat your times next time, or less, less, and less. And he continued to do that. And but they're doing something they don't want to do, and they didn't join for that. I realized that the Navy gave them an opportunity, but again, that program could do better. And the simplicity would be, let them have whatever job they want. And can they do that? Absolutely. How do I know that? Because in recruiting, and I think it was 2000, in the Navy, we were going to miss goal. And for a year, we gave everybody whatever job they wanted. And what happened is they were waiting there, and waiting for their school to convene, which could be months upon months. However, they got what they wanted. So we've proven we can do it if we want to. So in this case, for those people, they certainly could do something like that for them. Because why shouldn't they do something they're interested in? And if they pick seaman airman fireman on their own, then so be it. I mean, I got no problem. I have no problem with it. I mean, maybe it's a job fit for them, but the other stuff is what Brandon wanted to be a diver. He wanted to do
EOD?
SWIC, it was called
Oh, yeah.
EOD, air crewman. He wanted to do one of those, and he was more than qualified for it. And he, ironically, most of those require a high swim classification. Brandon had it, very few do. And so they could have given him that, but most of those kids would qualify for what I'm saying. And that's all I'm saying. I mean, I don't mean to bash them, because I'm certain, there's no doubt, I was taught this in recruiting. The other services have an equivalent. What they're called, I couldn't tell you. I know infantry in the Army is one. I think it would be the same in the Marines. Again, I'm not downplaying it. What I'm saying is it's kind of the same situation. If you're infantry and you're an electrician, then that's better than being infantry and not an electrician when it comes to when you get out. I'm not talking about why you're in. I'm talking about when you get out.
Mhm.
We were just taught the more schooling you get, the better off you are. I know that's just a lifeline, but what I'm saying is in the military, it's totally true, because all that transfers to military credits, and it helps you with advancement. That's another thing. When you go out for advancement, the seamen, airmen, firemen are competing against people that are actually doing the job, and those test questions are pertaining to them, where the other is not doing the job and the test questions aren't pertaining to them. And it's strictly studying thousands upon thousands of pages of stuff, hoping that you could study hard enough and know how to do it that you could pass the test, where the other person's actually doing it and they have an advantage. And it's been proven they make advancement way quicker, faster, easier.
Hands-on is always going to give you hands-on's always going to give you an advantage.
Correct.
Always.
So, but anyway, I want to point out to you that him dying and everything is tragic as it is. What the command did after he died, you'd never believe it. You would never believe the stuff they did. It's up there with him dying. I can tell you that.
We've heard Heather's story about Caleb, so I don't know. I don't know if much would shock me at this point.
It would.
Wait, yeah.
It will. More. We know her story. That story's horrible too,
Yeah.
by the way. This one is not more horrible. It's just different.
No, horrible is horrible. Yeah. What I'm wondering is, I know there's a lot more to the story, and the last thing in the world that I want us to do, and I don't know, Skipper or Juan, how you guys feel about this. The last thing in the world I want to do is start to kind of delve into his final, week, his final day, and then the aftermath, and then feel like we have to compress all of that into a shorter period of time, because we're going on 50 minutes now, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Please don't hear that as me downplaying it, because this kind of backstory is really important. Would it be possible for us to talk you guys into making another appearance next week?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll talk about anything, because we've been telling Brandon's story to everybody, Congress, everybody. So,
we want to hear
going
about
into
the Brandon Act and your story with getting that passed,
Right.
as well as your foundation.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. And so the last thing in the world that I want to do is cut you guys short. Now I do feel like I need to find a script writer, because I brought up Christopher Walken, because I know that's who we're going to have to get to play you in the movie. And
Yay! We need a book and a movie deal, we think, anyway. That's just us.
All I could, like I said, throughout this, I never thought I'd say this, but I actually I was in recruiting when I first began. In the first 6 months, I think A Few Good Men came out. And all I could picture is Jack Nicholson. That's his command. I kid you not. That's not only his commanding officer, that was his whole chain of command. They all acted arrogant like that. And they do to this day, unfortunately, and they've never been held accountable. And unfortunately, when you don't hold people accountable, they'll continue to do what they do. But not only will they do it, in this case, they're killing their own. They'll
Absolutely.
continue to do that. And um, accountability is what fixes things. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. Although the Brandon Act, as you will find out later, we kind of found a way to safeguard people, at least for a while, meaning it'll stop what's going on for a while and get them help when they need it as they need it. But it, yeah, all I could think about is Jack Nicholson. That's how that command was and how they treated him and us. And I,
You know, it it's really telling that we talk about accountability. We talk we talk about that for elected servants and appointed servants, and as after having spent almost 13 years in the law enforcement world, and with my backstory and all of that, and how I ended up not being in that field anymore, I talk an awful lot about accountability for law enforcement and law enforcement command structure, and supervisors. And Skipper and I have talked so many times and so many episodes about accountability for military command. But unlike all those other things, politicians and public servants, public sector employees, unlike even law enforcement, as much as I know it needs reform, um, in a very solid, not defund the police way, but in a very solid logical approach to it. The one thing that the military doesn't have is any kind of oversight from any other body. Congress doesn't have any oversight over the military. The Senate doesn't have any oversight over the military. The executive branch, you know, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, whoever the president is, they just appoint somebody to be the secretary of whatever branch because they like this person, whether that person's got the best interest of the branch in mind or the best interest of the tax-paying public in mind. They just appoint a buddy in this nepotistic, sycophantic system. And they all they do is they build wall after wall after wall after wall on top of other pre-existing walls, so that the military is shielded and sheltered from any kind of accountability at all.
And they
And we
can
see that
and
play
we
out
hide
with
their own stuff too.
yeah.
and,
And
and
as
that's the
Skipper and I
problem.
so frequently joke, and it's not really all that funny anymore. But when you tell the military, here you've effed something up, foobarred, like that's there's military lingo we can all understand. This is foobarred, and the military says, okay, we're going to investigate. And sure enough, we find out the military has investigated itself, and it is determined at the end of its investigation into itself that it did nothing wrong. Every time. Every time.
It's
Or some
incredible.
little schmuck down the road that has absolutely never had any plan of ever making a career out of the military, just kind of came in maybe for college money, or maybe because mom and dad said, get your ass out of the house, because if you're not going to work, stop smoking pot, you're not going to be in our house anymore. They make an example of him, make that person they hold that person accountable, but they don't ever tell you for what or why. That's what it comes down to. And there's no oversight at all. None.
And I brought this up to Congress. As a matter of fact, I said this on our first journey to Capitol Hill many times, and I'll stand by this. Make me a senator tomorrow. Let me tell you how this would play out with Brandon's case. There's 5 people: Dwayne Whitmer, Trevor Prouty,
David
Tarkowski,
Tolkowski,
Hennard, and
Jared Burrows.
Doug D'Alessandro. Here's how it pan out. You'd be a parade rest in my office, literally in front of me at my desk. And I would ask you what happened. And knowing that you're going to lie anyway, I'd have Secret Service take you away. I'd never see you again. I mean, you'd be gone. I'd throw away the key. I wouldn't play with these people. Congress is over them. They just don't have the guts to do what they need to do. And that's the problem, because I watch like Gillibrand. I commend her. She's awesome. But she takes so much from them. I would never, there is no way. I'm sorry. It ain't for the greater good to let them get away with this. And I'd never let them talk to me that way. I would totally exercise my authority. And if I didn't get reelected, so be it. But I assure you, I would be reelected because I'd be the only one cleaning house with the military. Because I can tell you this, and I stand by this. If you took away Brandon's commanding officer in handcuffs like they should have, I assure you the suicide would go down to zero in the military, literally overnight. If it didn't work the first time, it would the second time. If it didn't work the second time, it worked the third time. There wouldn't be a fourth.
And one
Look at
thing
the
I've
ship collisions.
talked about on this show, what you find when you start looking into these is the same names and the same players coming up time and time again. And so it doesn't surprise me when Fort Hood's having problems because a lot of those people have been there for years, and
Yep.
just no one's going through and saying, okay, we need to do some good spring cleaning.
And and those people need to get out, because I tell you this, there's many people who never get an opportunity to be a commanding officer or some of the other positions in the chain of command. There are good people out there that would love to have those jobs. So these people either need to retire or let's get rid of them. I mean that. There's plenty of people to take their spot, because the way I see it, do you really need those people? If we went to war tomorrow, you're going to tell me that Dwayne Whitmer is going to lead HSC 28 to victory? You have to be kidding me. If anything, it'd be the opposite. More people would die in that unit than any other unit. It's pathetic. You can't have it that way, and you need to hold them accountable. And the how to get away with murder scripts got to end. The true way to fix it would be to allow you to sue the military. I got news for you. I mean, don't get me wrong, taxpayers would probably go bankrupt for a while, but the bottom line is, if you could sue the military, can you imagine the change there would be?
It's the exact same thing I say about law enforcement misconduct. People are like, well, yeah, but the taxpayers are paying for it. I'm like, taxpayers are paying for the misconduct anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe there'd be a little bit of change. Maybe there'd be some change in the military or law enforcement, whatever the case might be. There'd be some change if all of a sudden there was a settlement from the military or law enforcement or whoever it is to a family member, a survivor, or a person who's been abused. If all of a sudden the bill showed up in your mail the next day and said, oh, by the way, your property taxes just went up 10% more this year because our, this naval command suicided somebody. And, people would be paying attention real damn fast. They'd be paying real quick. But because of the way it's handled, nobody notices it. That's just the way it is. Juan, do you have, we're gonna work on. Let's plan on bringing you guys back next week. Skipper, are you down with that?
Yep.
Juan, do you have anything for us that would help us not end the show on a dour note? And by something for us to not end the show on a dour note, I don't mean any of Skipper's jokes or any of his pitches for TV shows or businesses. And while Juan is looking, I would like to remind everybody that we are a nonprofit show, but Right America Media and New Right Network, by the way, which also does air Veteran Nation, but Right America Media does all of this out of Juan's, I think it's his basement. I'm not sure. It might even still be his mom's basement.
Undisclosed compound somewhere in America.
An undisclosed compound somewhere, yes, on the East Coast. But
he's in a pirate radio van driving somewhere around Philly.
We do have some sponsors on the show, and one of those happens to be right here from the state of Minnesota, and that would be Mike Lindell and My Pillow. And so if you head over to My Pillow, you can help keep this show on the air. And if you would like us to not be on the air, you should still head over to My Pillow, and when you buy, send a message saying, please take Veteran Nation off. But in the meantime, Skipper, how can people take advantage of the Right America sponsorship or My Pillow sponsorship of Right America Media?
Well, they can go right onto the mypillow.com website and use promotion code RAM for Right America Media.
Folks, this is never scripted. Never. We don't script this at all. We don't have an ad read. We just make this up as we go.
All hip pocket
to fill time.
But we do want all of our viewers to know that Terry and Patrick, they do have a foundation. In fact, if you're watching on YouTube, down at the bottom in our scroll, I've got the link. It's BrandonCasertaFoundation.org. Uh, they're doing some great things to try to help with military and veteran suicide, which, as you know, is a big issue for us. We're trying to stop the at least 22 a day. We believe it's higher than that, but there's a lot of different programs out there, and they're working to try to reduce that number down to zero, and we can absolutely support that. And we'll have them on again next week and get into a little bit more of what they do with that organization. And speaking of organizations and foundation, we are a nonprofit, the Veteran Nation Foundation. We formed this year, and we are now working on a couple of different fundraisers, if you will. As always, you can go to our merch, but the big one that we have is to officially launch this. We have the Warriors Cruise. So starting on Veterans Day, November 10th to the 17th, we are going to be leaving Los Angeles and going to 3 Mexican ports of call, and it'll be veterans and people who support veterans. You can contact us by going to warriorscruise@gmail, and we will get you all the details. The rooms start at $860 per person, two people to a room. So if you want to come and hang out with us, come out on the cruise.
And by us, he means him.
I will
Because
bring
TC
my
does
joke
not
books.
have.
I will bring my pitches.
Skipper, you want people to take part in this. Probably not tell them you're going to bring your jokes. TC and Big Water do not get along.
If you want to see me lose thousands of dollars at a ship casino, come and watch.
So is this ship only our ship, or are we sharing it with other people?
Sharing it with other people. We will be on the Royal Caribbean Navigator of the Seas.
Fun.
That one's nice because it's got that water slide that goes out over the ocean. So if you want to get the experience of what it's like in the Navy,
Really?
No, they got it made compared to us. They got their own rooms and everything. But yeah, good point. Yeah, that'd be. I won't even step foot on a cruise ship. I dislike ship life so much. So, and I had a good job. Well, considered a good job. But anyway, I wanted to leave you with something to think about until we talk again. Is our philosophy, the way to fix the veteran suicide is simple. In order to be a veteran, you had to serve on active duty. If you fix active duty, which we are, then you fix veterans by de facto, period. You teach them, you educate them, you give them, empower them with the programs to follow them the rest of their life, no matter how it is, private insurance, VA, whatever, they can get the help. That's how you do it. And that's our goal and mission right there. And the Brandon Act fits right into that. You'll find that out. And the Brandon Act alerts you to what you alluded to earlier is it's a lifeline to all the other programs that are out there for both veterans and active duty. It's showing you everything they offer. If you don't know about it, if there's nobody to throw you a lifeline, then what good is it? I mean, it's the programs are no good because you don't know they exist or you don't know you can use them, so they're useless. That's where the Brandon Act shines, throws you a lifeline to pick what you want to use, pick whatever program you want to use. So there you go.
Well,
excellent.
So we meet
so
again.
you guys get to take part in reacting to whatever Juan found for us. We never know what we're going to get with Juan. He was in the Air Force after all.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Good point.
One of my friends actually is a commercial airline pilot, and one day he looked at me one day and he said, "Nick, we should pull off a prank." I said, "What's that?" He said, "We should dress you up as the pilot and greet the passengers as they get on the plane." And so, no joke, it was DFW Airport going to LAX, 6 o'clock in the morning, everyone's half asleep, no one's speaking to anybody, and then they see me standing at the door. I mean, they woke up right there and then. And I'm like, I'm Captain Nick Vujicic. I'm going to be flying the plane. You're so lucky to be on our flight because we're trying some new technology. And everyone's freaking out. Everyone's on the plane. And my friend, he says, okay, come on board. So I walk on the plane just like this, right? And you look down the aisle, and all the heads are like... And I got the microphone, and I said, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for boarding so fast. And they're like, oh my gosh! Some people came to Jesus right there and then. It was good.
Nice.
That was awesome.
Yeah, good job.
I don't know where one.
And he was telling that to a room full of convicts. So he's like,
Oh.
Did you notice that it was a room full of convicts? You know, it's like getting them to laugh at anything. It's like
Good
getting a
point.
Marine to stop eating crayons.
Good point.
Thank you very much, guys, for coming on, and we will look forward to having you on to tell us the rest of the story next week and about the act. And
Well, thank you very much
to
for
help out.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
We appreciate the
Yeah.
time you guys spent with
Yes.
us. We appreciate it.
And what you do. We appreciate that too.
Don't-
You take care.
TC, you plugging anything this week?
Oh, I've got a new series that's not being hosted by me on my channel. My series is being hosted by a new acquaintance of mine. His name is Cletus. Why are you laughing, Skipper? I could see your.
I'm not. I'm just smiling.
Cletus has really, he's stepped up his game. Cletus comes to us, and we're going to be working on doing an interview with Cletus, so Cletus can tell us about his life. But Cletus's new series on Minnesota Black Robe Regiment is Cletus Encounters with the North American Road Pirate. And it's, he makes some really astute observations, and he, I think he's taken his life in his own hands, because the other day Cletus noticed that a local subvariant of the, I think he refers to him as Parate Vias. They were sitting outside of his house the other day, about a half a block away, just looking at his house after a couple of his encounter videos. So Cletus is definitely he's gonna be something. I really do. I really think he's gonna be something. So if you should check out Cletus's new series. And it's a opportunistic series, because he never knows. You remember Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom? You remember that?
Yes.
You remember, like, you just knew that they, you just knew they had to spend hours and hours and hours getting the footage. Well, that's what Cletus is doing. He's out there doing his life, and he's just kind of walking around and driving around, and he's doing his thing. And he just, when he has an opportunity to interact with this new species of animal that's been identified, he records a video, and then he sends it to me for processing, and we put it up. So definitely have to check that out. And other than that, head over to my Subscribestar Minnesota Black Robe Regiment podcast. I'm looking for some supporters there, and also buy my merch. But more than anything, go to the Veteran Nation merch store and buy our merch. And then also buy tickets to the cruise, even if you don't go. That's fine.
Buy someone else. Buy a veteran a ticket and send them. We'll be doing PTSD workshops, so hopefully we can get better. And I will push everyone, join our Facebook group, Veteran Nation on Facebook, and you can find us there. And this has been a great episode. Thank you again to Teri and Patrick Caserta for joining us, and we'll see them again next week. And for all of you out there, thank you for being worth serving.